Hi everybody, Brian Norcross here with a 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central Time update on still Tropical Storm Beryl, although we do see signs now that it is organizing and it is anticipated that the intensification process will begin soon. Hurricane hunters are on their way there now as I record this at 1 p.m. and we'll see if they find anything stronger yet. But as you'll see when I show you the developments on the satellite and radar, you can clearly see that it is pulling an eye structure or a central core together, and that's a requirement for it to be able to intensify. The atmospheric pattern around it is conducive for intensification, so all indications are that this is going to be able to intensify in the next maybe 15, 16 hours before it makes landfall on the coast of Texas, south of Houston, but affecting the Houston metropolitan area. Okay, let's take a look at where things are on the satellite right now. And the latest advisory we have is 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central. This 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm slowing down in terms of its forward movement, which is all anticipated. 992 millibars was the latest reading there from the hurricane hunters. When we look at the satellite, what we're starting to see is that we're seeing thunderstorms kind of beginning to turn in this area right here. It's just clusters of them at this point. You can see that in the first part of the loop, watch here now, watch. See that notch up there? That notch is still dry air that's being rotated around. There's a lot of dry air out in here, and it's coming around and being pulled into the center of the system. Well, as long as it's doing that, that's keeping it from developing. If the system, though, can build thunderstorms, that brings moisture up into it, and that pushes the dry air away. And so that was the expectation, and we think that is what indeed we're seeing here now that we're seeing clusters of thunderstorms kind of around the center. Looking at it in a different way, here you can clearly see that it's trying to kind of close off this area right in here. And that would seem to be where a core is trying to develop. The better way to look at it, though, is on the radar. This is radar out of Brownsville. The center of this is about 130 miles or so east of South Padre Island. And here you can see it in there. See those thunderstorms? Those are the thunderstorms you saw where you see the yellows there. There's also a strong band, as there often is, spiral bands. All that is part of a well-developed system, but it needs that core. So as long as that core doesn't develop, good news, it can't really intensify very much. But as that rotation kind of closes in, like a figure skater pulling in her arms, she spins faster. So as this center area here, this core kind of closes in and makes a tighter circle, we expect the winds in these cells to be stronger, and eventually maybe we'll see some sort of a banding structure that will be some development of an eye type structure around that center. But we're still standing by for that, so we'll wait on the hurricane hunters to see if anything has happened there yet, but the structure is stronger. Up to the north, look at this strong outer band with lots of lightning right now moving through downtown Houston here and moving north through Harris County. Here is Harris County here, and it also extends all the way over here to the west, and look at that, extends to the east, now coming ashore in Cameron County. This is in Louisiana, so this is a long outer band, which gives you an idea of the amount of energy in this circulation. It's extending its energy way out to the edges, but then we get into this drier air down here. But even in that, we're starting to see now more thunderstorms develop, so all a sign of general moistening. In terms of the timing of this landfall and what we're looking for here, you see that this Sunday p.m., this is 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern nominally, plus or minus, of course, that it becomes a 75-mile-an-hour Category 1 hurricane about that time, and we're southeast here of Corpus Christi. So, and moving almost due north at that time. Question is exactly what the direction of movement is, because it'll make a difference, obviously, who gets the worst weather, if it comes here closer to Freeport or it goes there closer to Port Lavaca and Victoria, Texas. But in any case, if we just look at the timing, this is nominally 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central. Up here, we back that off, and I'm going to show you that this is in the 4 to 4:30 a.m. range on their current schedule. It could speed up a little bit, it could slow down a little bit, but the idea is it's going to happen in the overnight hours is when it's going to peak at the coast. Now, the bad news about that is it'll be dark, obviously. The good news about that is that the tide is lowest about that time. So that will lower the effect of the storm surge that will push in with the storm. So with both things going on there. So this is the cone. Now we're going to talk a lot about the fact that the weather, the bad weather, extends way outside the cone in this storm and every storm these days, especially when you get close to landfall. So the cone is just for the timing of the center. And you can see that they're forecasting still inland 85 miles an hour. So the anticipation at the coast is 90 or 95 miles per hour. Wouldn't be surprised to see that's a category 1. Wouldn't be surprised to see a category 2 there. So that's what everybody should be aware of. And in the forecasts, the warning forecast, various warnings, they build in that possibility because they got to warn for it because it's a reasonable possibility. So I said that the weather extends outside the cone. Here's the cone for reference. We're going to use this cone for reference a lot here. And you can see that there's the core of the storm right there with the hurricane force gusts. These are the hurricane force sustained winds. So this is the strongest wind. Remember, the wind is coming around like this. So it's pushing water against the coast on the right side. This will be a lot less impactful on the left side, but still near the center, you still have significant effects. This is all north of Corpus Christi now, up the coast from Corpus Christi. And notice this is pushing water here, tropical storm force winds pushing water into Galveston Bay. The yellow area is where winds 40 miles per hour or higher are anticipated, and there it is pushing into Galveston Bay. So that's why there's storm surge alerts all for the coast there, and the water is actually being pushed against the shoreline, even up from Galveston Bay. And this is just if it goes down the middle of the cone. If it were to lean a little bit to the right, and remember, when storms are just developing, they're definitely subject to more errors because we don't know exactly where the center is now, so you can't forecast where the center is going to be. They make a best estimate, but if it ends up forming a little bit to the right, then this would put stronger winds and higher water in the Houston metropolitan area, Galveston, Bolivar Peninsula, and Surfside Beach, and so forth in the general Houston metropolitan area. So that timing is, by the way, 4 a.m. So the center of this looks like it's just offshore at 4 a.m. So that would be the schedule, if they have it perfect, if the National Hurricane Center has it perfectly figured out. Now, the question is, might it speed up or slow down? Of course it might. So around that time period is what's expected. So again, using the cone here as a reference, you see where the hurricane warnings are. Hurricane warnings mean that the expectation is that in that hurricane warning area, there are going to be winds sustained over 75 miles per hour. That means usually gusting over 100 miles per hour. So that's in the kind of purplish area here that extends from Corpus on up to just beyond Sargent, just below Galveston Island there. And then all this red area all the way inland is the tropical storm warning, meaning that in that area somewhere there's going to be these winds over 40 miles an hour sustained, usually gusting up to 50 or 60 miles per hour. Obviously, that can take out power. So when you see this area here, this is the area as of right now that power outages may well occur, and everybody in that area should have plans, keep their cell phones charged. Trees could come down. Be sure you take care of where you park your car. Just common sense things for a very windy situation. Also, we're going to have rain, and when you have rain and wind, of course, what you get is trees coming down and so forth because the roots get saturated. So we're expecting all of that in that tropical storm warning area. And if the storm stays in the cone, obviously it's going to be this part of it. This part of it here is for fringe effects. And even though the left side will have some effects, if it goes to the middle or the right side of the cone, obviously there'll be less in Corpus and less on the left side of those areas right there. And then there's the storm surge issue. Again, we're using the cone as the reference here. So you can see, remember, if the storm comes up in here somewhere, wherever it comes up here, any one of these places makes a good forecast, right? But the water is going to be coming ashore on the right side. So all this is onshore wind. The water is already a foot and a half or so above normal along there just because of just the breeze that's blowing in now and the general energy that the storm is putting up against the shoreline. So these forecasts indicate here that in this core area, up to 6 feet above normal high tide. So if you stand at the beach on the high tide line and you imagine 6 feet of water, that's the possibility for a maximum, a reasonable maximum. Now, good news, as I said, it looks like this is going to happen at low tide. So take a foot and a foot and a half off of that for a maximum possibility. And it's not everywhere, it's somewhere. It depends on where the strongest push of wind is. We just can't pin that down. Same thing up here, up to 5 feet. That's in Galveston Bay, that's on Bolivar, that's on up all the way to the Louisiana border. And again, that's the possibility of 5 feet somewhere in that area above normal high tide. That whole area is going to have water above normal high tide. But how much, the 5 feet is to put a ceiling on that, and somewhere could get that, and then up to 3 feet up here in Cameron Parish in Louisiana. So this is obviously a dangerous and life-threatening situation for anybody that might get caught in that storm surge. So this is why houses are built on stilts along most of that coast. This is why you don't want to park your car anywhere along there, because the car has a very good chance of just being inoperable afterward, because this is all salt water. Remember, when you see, even if you have a foot of storm surge or 6 inches of storm surge, if you drive through it, that's salt water you're getting up in the car, which can ruin the car. So you want to stay away from storm surge. All right, so what's going to happen with the storm? Here's the thinking. There's where it is right now. You can see it's kind of a ragged batch of moisture. It still has this dry air here trying to wrap around into it, but it's tending now to push it away. All right, watch as we go forward in time and through tonight and into the overnight, and you notice that it has much more organized look to it. As this moisture feed comes up, feeds into the center. So that's the evolution that we expect will happen. There's still dry air wrapping around, but to what degree it can push it out will control whether this ends up being a Category 1 or maybe a Category 2. Probably not a Category 3. It would have to really explode. There probably isn't time for that, although the atmospheric pattern is conducive. But it would have to push out the dry air, get super organized, and so forth. But some quite rapid, whether it would meet the definition of rapid intensification, I don't know, but quite rapid looks likely here in these hours before landfall. All right, so there's the cone, and it continues on. And by the way, talking all about Texas, because that's imminent, of course, but also into northeast Texas and Arkansas and on up into Missouri. This storm is going to cause problems, and you need to stay in touch with your National Weather Service offices there. There are the models, so all in the cone. There's the consensus. That's the one you want to look at. Some people want to look at the Euro and the GFS. The consensus is the best one. That's what the Hurricane Center uses. That's why it's more or less down the middle of the cone as it goes to the north. So how about the spread? How much uncertainty do we have? Well, we don't have much uncertainty where it's coming ashore. It's coming ashore south of Houston, north of Corpus. But after that, the speed of it is quite uncertain. You see, you have all these L's, each one representing a possibility from here all the way up into Kentucky on Tuesday. So some have it moving out fast, some have it moving more slowly. That's where the uncertainty is. But the direction is very, very certain, high confidence. All right, so the rain is going to be an issue, and look at the corridor, where the corridor of rain is. You see it is east of I-35, right? So this is all on the east side of Austin, Waco, San Antonio. And then you have this strong corridor going all the way up here like this. Notice that's western and northern Houston metro area, and that includes Katy, for example, and that includes those areas that are prone to flooding. So all that water that falls here, and you see, and this indication is 5 to 8 inches, some areas 10 inches, maybe down here we have some 8 to 12 inches. So the official forecast is for up to 10 inches with isolated areas of 15 inches. So it depends on how fast the storm moves, obviously. But all this water that's falling up in here in the counties north and west of Houston, Fort Bend County and Waller County, and up that way, Brazos County even, that water has got to get to the Gulf, and that's going to come through Houston. So that's coming down the creeks, that's coming into the reservoirs, that's going down the bayous and so forth. So flash flooding is going to be a threat, and that'll be Monday into late Monday, maybe into Tuesday for that flood threat. So everybody in Metro Houston, stay in close touch with what's going on. Nobody should be planning to go to work, go to school, do anything on Monday, but follow the instructions of emergency management. Don't follow Brian Norcross on that. But I'm just saying, if it were me, I would be planning to stay home on Monday. There's also a tornado threat. So this is tonight, because the tornado threat is in advance of the arrival of the storm. So this is tonight. And you see it includes parts of Metro Houston in the dark red, all of Metro Houston in the dark red, actually. And here's again the cone. So the tornado threat is to the right and in front of the storm. That's tonight. And then we go to tomorrow, and you notice the threat extends to the north, all the way into Shreveport, Texarkana, and points north up into Arkansas. So just bear this all in mind if you're in this threat zone, to modulate your behavior to take all that into account. All right, friends, stay on top of it. Stay in touch with your local officials there and local instructions, and know what you're going to do. It's going to start tonight, and tomorrow is going to be the day in Texas, and then spreading to the north, eventually into the Midwest. All right, take good care.